One of the challenges in off-grid, as well as the RV world or overlanding world, is battery technology. LiFePO4s have really changed the equation a great deal, but there are some problems that can make it difficult to make the move in colder environments, and that's one of the big challenges. And I've often said that in extreme cold, lead-acid batteries may actually be a better option, or AGMs. But there's some new technologies coming out today that may address this problem, at least in a fashion that, frankly, can make LiFePO4s a better option for even those in colder environments. Like in my case, I have a cabin that's at 3,200 feet in elevation up near the Canadian border. And one of the big challenges up there was having a place to keep my batteries warm. Now, in my case, I built a super insulated, partially subgrade room that has a heater in it to keep my batteries warm all winter long. And it doesn't really use a lot of propane, but for someone in an area that doesn't have access to, well, a truck that can come in and fill up your propane tank, and that can be a problem for somebody with an off-grid cabin that they leave for extended periods of time, which I actually do. It's pretty common for me to have to leave my cabin for 2, 3 weeks, a month, or even 2 months at times in the winter. And in the winter, I can see temperatures at 30 below zero Fahrenheit. And in that environment, LiFePO4 batteries may not be an option for some, because even though they can discharge down to about -4 degrees Fahrenheit, their recommended storage temperature is 23 degrees Fahrenheit. So with a cabin that can easily get down into that 20 to 30 below range, at least outside air temperatures, I've seen the inside air temperature of my cabin below zero when I've gone out there and it's been extremely cold. So it's kind of important to understand that LiFePO4 batteries maybe aren't the best in that environment unless you get a new one like I'm going to show you today. Standard LiFePO4 batteries use a liquid or at least semi-liquid electrolyte in the battery, and that can pose some challenges. In fact, they won't take a charge under 32 degrees Fahrenheit, and they won't discharge below -4. And the battery I have here today has the same specs as a standard LiFePO4. However, there are some things about this battery, and I think a lot of batteries that you're going to see coming out now, they actually can handle colder temperatures a lot better. Even though they don't rate it for that, my research tells me they're far more stable, far better in colder environments, and actually can retain more power or deliver more power in those cold environments. For example, a lead-acid battery at 0 degrees Fahrenheit only has about 50% capacity. Now, a LiFePO4 battery at 0 degrees Fahrenheit can deliver power, but it's significantly reduced in the amount of reserve power it has or can deliver, and it won't take a charge at those cold temperatures. So there are some solutions to that, and Renogy, who sent me this battery, is now making one of these new ones, which are solid-state LiFePO4s. Now you, maybe like me, would ask, what's solid-state versus what we already have? In fact, I actually thought LiFePO4s were basically solid-state batteries to begin with. So when Renogy said, we'd like to send you a solid-state battery to check out, I thought, well, is it really that different? Well, I'm here to tell you today that it is different, and that I think it may be the future of LiFePO4 batteries. So let's talk about the difference between standard LiFePO4s and solid-state LiFePO4 batteries. Standard LiFePO4s, which is pretty much the standard today in the off-grid world, use a liquid electrolyte versus a solid-state LiFePO4 battery, which actually uses, as its name suggests, a thin solid material instead. Solid-state batteries have higher energy density than standard LiFePO4 batteries do. They're safer because there's no liquid to leak out, and their lifespan tends to be longer. In fact, this battery here, they show has a 6,000 cycle life at 100% depth of discharge. Now, most LiFePO4s that I've tested and played with are about 4,000. The very, very good ones are around 5,000, and this one is 6,000 cycles to 80%. That's pretty amazing. Now, the other thing that Renogy did to make this battery better for colder environments is they also put a 120 watt heating plate inside of the battery, so that as long as you've got 10 amps coming to the battery, it can heat itself up to take a charge. And they say that the heater in this battery can rise it from -4 degrees Fahrenheit to 32 degrees Fahrenheit in 2 hours. It will also come on at 41 degrees Fahrenheit and shut off at 50. So as long as this battery has 10 amps of charging power, or 120 watts, it will actually heat itself up so that it can take a charge. So now you have a battery with 6,000 life cycles, which, folks, that's like 15 or more years. I'm not going to do the math, but that's a long time. It's got a heater that keeps it heated when it gets cold, as long as it's got power coming in. And on top of that, this battery is only about the size of a Group 31 battery. Now, Group 31s are about 13 inches long, 6.5 inches wide, and about 9 inches tall. This one is 7.5 inches wide by 7.5 inches tall and 13 inches long. So it's pretty close to the size of a Group 31 battery. It's also built with a metal case. Now, I think this metal case is aluminum. I'm not entirely sure, but I noticed that my magnet won't attach to it, so it's not steel, but it is in fact metal. So now you have a battery that not only has a lot of cycle lives, has an internal heater, but my reading suggests that even though they say has a discharge down to -4 degrees, I've read that it actually could be lower. Now, maybe they set the BMS to keep it at -4, and that's okay. But from what I understand, there's less chance of damage with a solid state battery than there is with a standard LiFePO4. And it can charge up to around 130 degrees, but it has a lot of thermal protection. Solid state batteries tend not to get thermal runaway and all that kind of stuff, so they're just a better battery overall for either your RV or your off-grid cabin. Now, of course, you do have to have enough solar power coming into them during the day to heat them back up, but if you put them in a nice insulated box with that heater and enough solar to do that, which it's not a lot of solar, folks, 120 watts. I got over 2,400 watts of solar at my cabin. So 120 watts, I can do that all day long. With a good insulated box, a decent amount of solar, a battery like this is not only more stable, not only safer, not only has more cycle life than your standard LiFePO4s, but it'll keep itself warmed up so that it can continue to take a charge and discharge for you at your cabin. So if you're looking at off-grid or for your RV or something of that nature, having a battery that can do all of that is pretty cool. I think it's a great option. And I think it's probably where LiFePO4s are all going to go moving forward. They're just more stable, they're more robust, it's a better option. Now, this particular battery, I have to admit, has a lot of cool features. It actually has communications ports that you can connect to other batteries so they all can communicate together. Now, they do show, like most LiFePO4s, that the BMSs on this battery, which is a 12.8 volt, 120 amp hour battery, and I mentioned earlier, it's basically a Group 31, slightly smaller actually, but it has 120 amp hours rather than 100. You're getting a little more power out of this one, plus the heater with communications ports that can communicate to all your other batteries as well as potentially your inverter, and they have Bluetooth as well so that you can use a Bluetooth to check your battery status. So I gotta say, this looks like a really, well, I want to say solid battery. No pun intended because it's solid state, but it's a pretty cool battery. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hook this up and I'm going to do some charge and discharge cycles. And I think I'm even going to put it out in some pretty cold weather and have it try to power some things and see how it does when it gets down into those colder temps. Could be kind of fun to do that. I want to thank Renogy for sending me this because frankly, I hadn't really looked into solid state batteries yet. And their sending it to me prompted me to do a little research myself into that semi-solid state LiFePO4 battery world. And what I'm seeing is interesting. Now, one of the things I read is that a lot of these batteries are still fairly new, and so they're treating them a lot like standard LiFePO4s. But from what I understand, the solid state LiFePO4 batteries can take extreme temperatures a heck of a lot better than your standard LiFePO4s. And in an RV that maybe sits in the winter, well, that could be really important. So there you have it, folks. If you're looking for a battery for either your RV or for an off-grid cabin where cold temperatures can be an issue, I recommend you check out Renogy's line of solid state lithium ferrous phosphate batteries. They're going to be a little more expensive than your standard LiFePO4s, but with built-in heaters, metal cases, the performance of solid state, not to mention the 6,000 life cycles, which is 50% more than most LiFePO4s you see out there today. And frankly, folks, if you're looking at a LiFePO4 with less than 4,000 cycles, it's probably not a great battery. And thanks again for watching, folks. Thanks to all my members. I appreciate you being here, supporting the channel. It really helps me out, keeps me motivated. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Meanwhile, folks, I'm going to throw another video right out here for you to check out. Thanks for watching. The old Jarhead out.